For years, the world believed it already knew the story. A story about Hollywood's golden couple. A story of love, fame, betrayal, and heartbreak. It looked so simple from their outside. Brad Pitt met Jennifer Aniston. They fell in love. They became America's favorite couple. Then everything fell apart. But what if the story we've been told for more than 20 years is only half the truth? Because after decades of silence, personal struggles, public failures, and a lifetime of hard-earned experience, Brad Pitt began looking back on that chapter of his life very differently. Not with excuses, not with bitterness, but with a level of honesty that few people expected. And once you hear their entire story from the beginning to the moments that changed everything, you may never see one of Hollywood's most famous relationships the same way again. Before Jennifer Aniston entered the picture, Brad Pitt was already becoming one of Hollywood's fastest rising stars. The late 1980s and early 1990s transformed him from an unknown actor into one of the industry's most recognizable faces. His breakthrough roles didn't just make audiences notice his talent, they made him one of the most desired men in the world. As his career accelerated, so did public curiosity about his personal life. Every new movie was followed by rumors about his relationships. Every public appearance became headline news. Brad was linked to several actresses during those early years, including Robin Givens, Jill Skolin, and later Juliette Lewis. His relationship with Lewis attracted particular attention, not only because they appeared genuinely happy together, but because of their age difference. Brad was already in his late 20s, while Juliette was still a teenager when they began dating. Despite the constant media attention, the relationship lasted several years before quietly coming to an end. Like many young romances in Hollywood, it simply couldn't survive the pressures that surrounded it. But what happened next made people believe Brad had finally found the woman he would spend the rest of his life with. In 1994, while filming the psychological thriller C7N, Brad met Gwyneth Paltrow. Their chemistry was limited to the screen. Friends, co-stars, and journalists all noticed how naturally they connected. Within a short time, they became one of Hollywood's most admired couples. Their relationship moved quickly. By 1996, they were engaged. Brad spoke openly about his future, giving every impression that he had found the person he wanted to marry. Fans believed the wedding was only a matter of time. Instead, something unexpected happened. Just 1 year later, their engagement ended. Neither of them revealed every reason behind the breakup, leaving the public to speculate for years. Another seemingly perfect Hollywood romance had quietly disappeared. At the time, few people realized that this heartbreak would lead Brad toward the relationship that would ultimately define an entire era of celebrity culture. Because around the same time, another television star was rebuilding her own life. Jennifer Aniston had become one of the biggest names on television thanks to Friends. Week after week, millions of viewers welcomed Rachel Green into their living rooms. Yet away from the cameras, Jennifer was also recovering from the end of a serious relationship. Like Brad, she was searching for another headline romance. She simply wanted peace. Fate had other plans. Their managers believed they would get along and arranged an introduction. There was no grand Hollywood event. No carefully staged publicity. Just two successful actors meeting at exactly the right moment in their lives. The connection was immediate. It was dramatic. It was explosive. It felt surprisingly effortless. Friends later described their conversations as easy and genuine. There was no pressure to impress one another. No competition. No games. Both had already experienced public relationships. Both understood the strange reality of living under constant attention. Perhaps that shared understanding created something rare. For the first time in years, Brad appeared relaxed. Jennifer brought out a lighter, more playful side of him. Meanwhile, Brad offered Jennifer a sense of stability that she rarely found amid the chaos of Hollywood. Instead of rushing into the spotlight, they did something unusual for two of the world's biggest celebrities. They kept their relationship private. They avoided unnecessary interviews. They stayed away from constant public appearances. The mystery only made people more curious. Rumors spread everywhere. Were they dating? Were they just friends? Nobody knew for certain. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. When Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston appeared together publicly, Hollywood seemed to stop and stare. The chemistry was impossible to ignore. They looked comfortable. They laughed naturally. They didn't appear to be performing for cameras. For many people, they represented something that had become increasingly rare in celebrity culture. Authenticity. Suddenly, magazines couldn't stop talking about them. Television shows analyzed every appearance. Photographers followed them across the country. Yet unlike many celebrity couples of that era, Brad and Jennifer rarely fueled their attention themselves. They simply lived their lives. Ironically, that made the public love them even more. The less they revealed, the more fascinated everyone became. What no one realized was that this was only the beginning. Because within a year, Brad Pitt would make a decision that would captivate their entire world and turn their love story into one of the most unforgettable romances Hollywood had ever seen. But that fairy tale was already carrying invisible cracks. Cracks that nobody, not the media, not the fans, and perhaps not even Brad and Jennifer themselves could see. And those hidden fractures would eventually change all of their lives forever. By 1999, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston were no longer just another celebrity couple. They had become Hollywood's ultimate power couple. Every appearance they made together generated headlines around the world. Every smile, every glance, every red carpet moment seemed to reinforce the same idea. This was their relationship that would last forever. Then came one unforgettable night. At a Sting concert in New York, Brad surprised Jennifer with a proposal that few people saw coming. Their engagement ring, custom-made in platinum and diamonds, quickly became one of the most talked-about celebrity rings of its time. Fans celebrated as if their engagement belonged to all of America. After years of watching Hollywood romances fall apart, people desperately wanted this one to succeed. Less than a year later, that dream became reality. In July of 2000, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston were married in a breathtaking ceremony overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Malibu. Nearly 200 guests attended. The wedding featured fireworks, live music, elegant floral displays, and every detail imaginable. Yet surprisingly, the most memorable part was the luxury. It was something much simpler. During their vows, they promised each other ordinary things. Jennifer joked about always making Brad his favorite banana milkshake. Brad promised to keep the thermostat at a reasonable temperature. Tiny promises. Ordinary promises. The kind made by two people deeply in love. Those moments made them feel real. For millions watching from a distance, they weren't just movie stars anymore. They were a couple people could actually relate to. Over the next several years, their lives seemed almost perfect. Brad's career continued reaching new heights. Jennifer remained one of television's biggest stars through the incredible success of Friends. Together, they appeared unstoppable. Magazine covers called them the most beautiful couple in the world. Entertainment shows described them as the definition of relationship goals. Whenever they walked a red carpet, photographers barely had enough room to capture them. Flash after flash illuminated every step they took. But something else quietly strengthened their bond. They weren't only building successful careers. They were building a future together. Brad co-founded Plan B Entertainment, a production company that would eventually create award-winning films. Jennifer fully supported his ambitions while continuing her own career. Meanwhile, Brad made a memorable guest appearance on Friends, delighting audiences who loved seeing the real-life couple sharing the screen. Everything appeared effortless. Everything appeared perfectly balanced. At least, that's what the public believed. Because behind closed doors, reality looked very different. Success often creates an illusion. People assume fame solves problems. Money removes stress. Recognition guarantees happiness. But relationships don't work that way. The more their careers expanded, the more difficult it became to protect their private life. Every vacation became international news. Every interview generated speculation. Every photograph sparked rumors. There was almost no room left for normal life. Around 2003, subtle signs began appearing. Nothing dramatic. Nothing scandalous. Just small differences that slowly grew larger. Jennifer often spoke about wanting children. She believed it was possible to balance motherhood with acting. Brad shared similar dreams. He imagined a large family filled with children. On paper, they wanted the same future. But reality kept getting in the way. Movie schedules, television commitments, endless travel, constant media attention. Life refused to slow down. Years later, Jennifer would describe Brad not as some magical soulmate from a fairy tale, but as one of the great loves of her life. It was an important distinction, because real love isn't perfect. Real love involves disagreements, misunderstandings, compromise, and sometimes, two people can genuinely love each other while still growing in different directions. By late 2004, rumors surrounding their marriage had become impossible to ignore. Tabloids claimed they were spending less time together. Anonymous insiders hinted at growing distance. Both Brad and Jennifer continued smiling for cameras. Neither publicly admitted anything was wrong. But those closest to them reportedly understood that the marriage had entered a difficult chapter. Then came New Year's. The couple vacationed together in Angola. To the outside world, it looked like another romantic getaway. Instead, it would become one of their final trips as husband and wife. Only weeks later, they released a joint statement announcing their separation. The news exploded across the entertainment world. Fans couldn't believe it. For years, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston had represented hope. Proof that true love could survive Hollywood. Now suddenly, that image collapsed overnight. Interestingly, their statement emphasized one important point. They insisted the decision was driven by sensational rumors or public speculation. It was simply the result of two people choosing different paths. Soon afterward, Jennifer officially filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. It sounded ordinary, almost clinical, but emotionally, it marked their end of one of Hollywood's most beloved love stories. For many fans, the heartbreak felt strangely personal. People who had never met Brad or Jennifer mourned the relationship as though they had lost friends. Television hosts debated what went wrong. Magazine covers searched for someone to blame. The public desperately wanted an explanation. They didn't have to wait long, because only a few months later, photographs emerged that changed everything. Brad Pitt was seen vacationing on a beach in Kenya. Standing beside him was his Mr. and Mrs. Smith co-star, Angelina Jolie. Alongside them was Angelina's young son. Within hours, those photographs traveled around the world. Almost instantly, one quiet divorce transformed into one of the biggest celebrity scandals of the decade. Questions exploded across every newspaper and television network. Had Brad fallen in love while he was still married? When did the relationship actually begin? Was there more to the story than anyone had been told? Neither Brad nor Jennifer claimed that infidelity had caused the breakup. Both denied their rumors, but public opinion had already chosen its narrative. Jennifer became the heartbroken wife. Angelina became the woman blamed for destroying Hollywood's perfect marriage. Whether that version of events was completely fair or not no longer mattered. It became the story millions believed. And once that story took hold, there was no turning back. What happened next would completely reshape Brad Pitt's life, redefine Angelina Jolie's public image, and create one of the most famous celebrity relationships the world has ever seen. The photographs from Kenya changed everything. Almost overnight, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie became the most talked-about couple on the planet. Whether people admired them or criticized them, one thing was undeniable. Their entire world was watching. As the months passed, Brad and Angelina stopped hiding their relationship. They appeared together more often, traveled around the world, and gradually built a life that looked completely different from anything Brad had experienced before. Together, they created a large family through both adoption and the birth of their own children. Their lives became centered not only around Hollywood, but also around humanitarian work. They visited refugee camps, supported global charities, spoke openly about international issues. To many people, they represented a new kind of celebrity couple, one driven by purpose rather than fame. The media even gave them a new identity. They were no longer simply Brad and Angelina. They became Brangelina, a single name that symbolized one of the most famous relationships in modern entertainment history. For years, they appeared inseparable. Magazine covers praised them. Fans admired the family they had built. Their children often accompanied them on humanitarian trips, giving their impression of a close-knit household built on shared values. In 2014, nearly a decade after first becoming a couple, Brad and Angelina finally married. The ceremony was intentionally private. Held at their estate in France, it focused less on celebrity glamour and more on family. Their children helped design parts of the wedding. Some even contributed artwork that appeared on Angelina's dress. It felt like the perfect ending to a love story that had survived years of public scrutiny. Or so it seemed. Because sometimes, the stories that appear strongest from the outside are already beginning to crack beneath the surface. Only 2 years later, everything changed. In September 2016, Angelina Jolie filed for divorce. Their announcement stunned Hollywood. Unlike Brad's previous divorce, this separation quickly became far more painful and far more public. Disputes over child custody dominated the headlines. Serious allegations emerged. Legal battles stretched on 4 years. Every new court document seemed to create another wave of media attention. For the first time in decades, Brad Pitt wasn't being discussed simply as a movie star. He was being discussed as a man confronting the consequences of deeply personal struggles. During this period, Brad made a decision that surprised many people. Instead of remaining silent, he began speaking honestly about his life. He admitted that alcohol had become a serious problem. He described reaching a point where he realized something had to change. He entered therapy. He joined Alcoholics Anonymous. He spoke about learning to take responsibility rather than searching for excuses. In interview after interview, audiences noticed something different. The confident Hollywood superstar seemed to have disappeared. In his place was someone quieter, more reflective, someone who no longer seemed interested in protecting a flawless public image. One interview in particular captured everyone's attention. Looking back on an earlier chapter of his life, Brad admitted that for years he had felt emotionally disconnected. Even while achieving extraordinary success, something inside him felt empty. He described spending too much time chasing an idea of fulfillment instead of actually living a meaningful life. Then came the statement that instantly made headlines around the world. Many news outlets interpreted his words as criticism of his marriage to Jennifer Aniston. The backlash was immediate. People accused him of blaming Jennifer for his unhappiness. But when Brad later clarified what he meant, the story took on an entirely different meaning. He explained that Jennifer had never been the problem. The dissatisfaction he described came from within himself. He had been searching for purpose in all the wrong places. No relationship, no matter how loving, could solve an inner conflict that he hadn't yet understood himself. It was an unusually honest admission. Not because it erased the past, but because it accepted responsibility for it. Brad spoke warmly whenever Jennifer's name came up. He described her as kind, generous, funny, someone he genuinely respected. There was no bitterness in his voice, no attempt to rewrite history, only gratitude for a chapter of life that had shaped the person he eventually became. Perhaps the greatest lesson wasn't about losing someone else. Perhaps it was about finally understanding yourself. Meanwhile, Jennifer Aniston had quietly rebuilt her own life. Instead of responding to endless rumors, she focused on her work. She continued starring in successful films, expanded her production career, and became one of the most admired actresses in Hollywood, not just for her talent, but for the grace with which she handled extraordinary public pressure. Even after her marriage to Justin Theroux ended in 2018, Jennifer refused to let heartbreak define her. She rarely criticized former partners. She rarely fueled tabloid drama. Instead, she simply kept moving forward. That quiet dignity earned her something even more valuable than sympathy. It earned lasting respect. Then, something unexpected happened. In 2019, Brad Pitt attended Jennifer Aniston's 50th birthday celebration. The internet exploded. Photos from their event spread across social media within minutes. Fans immediately wondered if this could be the beginning of a reunion. Months later came another unforgettable moment. Backstage at the 2020 Screen Actors Guild Awards, cameras captured Brad and Jennifer greeting one another with genuine warmth. A smile, a laugh, a brief touch on their arm. Only a few seconds. Yet those few seconds became one of the most viewed celebrity clips of the year. Millions of people weren't just watching two former spouses. They were watching two people who had once shared an important chapter of their lives and who now seemed completely at peace with one another. Later that same year, they reunited again for a virtual table read of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Their playful chemistry immediately reignited old speculation. Comment sections filled with hopeful messages. Fans wanted to believe that destiny might somehow bring them back together. But reality was far simpler. Whenever Brad was asked about Jennifer, he answered with calm consistency. He called her a good friend, a talented actress, someone he respected deeply. Jennifer expressed similar feelings. Neither of them suggested they were rebuilding a romantic relationship. Instead, they demonstrated something far rarer: their ability to let love evolve. Because not every great love story ends with two people staying together forever. Sometimes, its greatest achievement is allowing two people to grow beyond the pain without losing respect for one another. And perhaps that's why their story continues to resonate decades later. Not because audiences are still hoping for a fairy tale ending, but because Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston remind us of something deeply human. People change. They make mistakes. They lose relationships they once believed would last forever. Some regrets never completely disappear. Some memories never truly fade. But with enough time, pain can become understanding. Bitterness can become gratitude. And love can transform into something quieter but no less meaningful. Maybe that is the real ending to this story. Not a dramatic reunion. Not a shocking confession. And not an impossible second chance. Just two people who once loved each other deeply, who traveled very different roads, and eventually found peace with the past they will always share. Sometimes, maturity isn't about changing what happened. It's about finally understanding it. And perhaps, that is the most meaningful ending either of them could have hoped for.